You press record?
Yeah.
What about now? Is the red light on? Is the blue light on? Is Roxanne the red light on?
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm... Ooh. It was 4 points at least, Spook.
Spook.
What?
Going into this game against West Coast, made some strange selections.
Do you think?
Yeah. So...
What were the actual ins, apart from West coming in? Who else come in?
Dean came in.
And
then Markov came in for Hill, who was a late withdrawal.
That's right.
But you had of the two guys who went out, Frampton went out injured, and McCreary went out, and he's a runner, so you think you'd replace him with another running player, but no, we actually opted for two talls.
How many talls we got in the forward line at the moment?
All of them.
Yeah,
So,
it looked like the New York City skyline there for a minute.
what did you think? Like, it wasn't
I don't like
really
to think.
pretty for the first half.
No, you reckon? That was
Yeah.
a clusterfuck the first half.
I mean, if you want an opening joke, I could read some of the comments you made in the message group.
I was pretty impressed. I admired our effort. Or lack thereof.
Is that when you screenshotted the ladder and said, just to be clear, it's his first versus 18th?
Just gonna leave this here. Yeah, well, seriously, weren't you disappointed with that?
Yeah, I'm more right now in the phase that just get through games without injuries.
Yeah, look, the cold, light-hearted day stuff, then the rhetoric comes out of that. Then post-game, that was pretty much how you feel. But I think I, along with a lot of people, were sitting there gobsmacked at what we were looking at in the first half.
I actually thought the first quarter, you had guys like Pendlebury and Josh Daicos getting a lot of the ball, but not actually doing a lot with it.
No, Daicos was on about 50% disposal efficiency or something
I think
less.
the Pendles was, and then Daicos was 62%. I can't remember, I screenshotted it. They were going for a lot of cute kicks into the middle, and it wasn't just those two, everyone was doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just highlighting the guys who were getting the ball and actually doing a lot. You had several times where they countered, and they just, their first goal, there was no one within 50 metres of that Williams on the counter-attack.
There was a lot of lair rising, I thought, in the first. It was just a little bit too... I don't think it was arrogance or anything like that. I just think they went out and thought it was going to be that easy. They could get away with anything. That's what it felt like there for a while. These ridiculous handballs to people that were immediately under pressure.
Yeah.
And, Nick, as much as we love him, put his hand up to be on the receiving end before he ran to a West Coast wall.
Since we're, in the business of rubbishing players... I actually have a grievance with Nick. I think he's fallen into a habit of calling for the ball when he shouldn't be calling for the ball.
Yeah.
And also calling for the ball at times where he gets it and then just kicks it. It's like, well, maybe the guy who had the ball already could have... And maybe, I think that's a byproduct of having Ned Long in there. So he's unwittingly developed this reliance of I'm going to be on the outside and get fed, whereas last year he had to do it all himself and go inside.
Yeah. I think an element of it is he's just trying too hard. You've had that period where he was tagged the fuck out of games, and he did the same thing last week with the Saints, and then turned it into an art form this week, calling for it when he knew he was going to walk into trouble. And I think that's just that belief that I just need to get back to my upper echelon of absolute blinder performances by doing too much to try and make miracles happen. Instead of just doing the bread and butter stuff, I'd rather take these three guys on, sidestep six of them and get the ball out over my shoulder or something. Whereas at the moment, you're being left alone, get back to basics would be the more logical thing. I reckon you'll see that this week against the Blues. There'll be none of the lair rising type stuff. Not that he was particularly bad or anything like that. I just think some of the decisions he was making at that time of the game were quite poor for him. Not that that's we're bagging him by any stretch of the imagination or anything like that.
I'm bagging him. Get the habits out of the game. Because I think when you are a really gun player, it's easy to fall into bad habits because a lot of it does come easier than it would come to someone like a Ned Long, who's had to work to get there. And I think this year, Nick struggled for various reasons. One's a tag, but I also think the dynamics changed in the midfield, where they're probably saying we need to get you more on the outer to use the ball rather than what you're doing last year where you had to do it all yourself and get on the inner. But, like I said, it's a byproduct of that. I think at times he's calling for balls that he shouldn't call for because he's running into trouble, or just calling for ball that's redundant because the guy who has the ball could just do the same thing. And it's like get into better positions where you can use it better. I don't know if there's issues still with his foot, which is so he's not running at the same level. I mean, I've heard conflicting reports about him at training that he's not leading packs the way he used to, but you don't know if that's just him managing himself. It's really hard one to work out, but like, I think the one concern, and it was interesting because I stumbled upon this stat, which I haven't told you because I wanted your live reaction.
We're taping this.
Yeah.
I can't go to everyone's house and give the same reaction.
There's no tape in the phone.
Well, how's it record?
It's like the Flintstones. There's a magpie that pecks a stone slate.
Fuck, we've come a long way, haven't we?
Apparently since round 8, we are the worst in the league for contested possessions.
Are we?
Yeah. And we are also the second worst for stopping teams from moving the ball from arc to arc, from defensive 50 to forward 50, just behind Essendon. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, that we're getting spanked around stoppages in terms of the way opposition are just able to move the ball so freely and waltz away. And you saw that again against West Coast. And there may be some of that is exacerbated by playing at that shithole. Disney's Marvel Stadium.
The concrete monstrosity.
Yeah. But
there's nothing better than walking around a football ground where there's the Hulk's hand holding a shield and the Hulkbuster suits on the outside. Because it speaks football more than anything, doesn't it?
The ground's just a shit fest. I mean, I will give it some credit that, like, I watched the Sydney Bulldogs game and I was like, well, at least the surface wasn't that fucking surface. You're only playing a professional billion-dollar sport and you can't fix these places. But I think the dynamics of the midfield, I don't know if, because McRae juggles it a lot. I don't know if he's experimenting to find mixes. Very surprised that Mitchell wasn't selected.
Yeah, I reckon that was more of a case that they didn't want to risk him on the concrete there. They would have weighed up quite seriously, I think, to bring him in, but it just wasn't the risk of someone who's prone to soft tissue injuries to be playing on a hardened steel and concrete surface.
I hope that's the case. I mean, I hope they haven't just sort of determined, no, we're moving past him. I thought it was absolute folly to bring in 2 talls for 1 tall and 1 small. I thought, and you said this earlier, which I didn't remark to you, but I think we've really struggled to make the Membry, Myercheck, McStay trio of talls up forward work. So to throw another tall in there is just absolute lunacy. You lose your free pressure forwards in Hill, McCreery and Schultz, and you don't even try and address that. So the amount of times the ball went forward and then just came back out, I think you can't play 4 talls when they're not exceptional marks. You know, Mycheck's a pretty good mark at times. McStay's can have sticky hands. None of those guys are like a Travis Cloak or an Anthony Rocker, where they're just going to mark, be the contested marking beast week in, week out.
Yeah.
So you're playing 4 talls, and then I think you were saying, I think you said it in the comments or the message group, you're saying, well, it's amazing that you can play 4 talls and still not pluck out a mark.
No, I made that gag to you, which wasn't really a gag, about... do you know who the 2 best marking people in our forward line in that game? It was Membry and West Coast.
Yeah.
Because they were taking everything coming in. Like, it was frustrating to watch. The ball just sail in and be seeing... I don't even know who these West Coast defenders are. Do they have names? They just roll them off an assembly line up there, don't they? But they were just reaching and leaping and grabbing everything coming their way, and they were getting the ball out with so much ease.
Well,
there was
you didn't those free pressure forwards, so...
It was frustrating to watch. Time and time again, every entry was almost the same.
I think Hayes is still a long way off it, but I would have rather played him. And I thought we're not going to play West, it would become at the cost of one. The other 3 would be rested.
Yeah, you reckon that was a lot? Because he talked about this in the presser about they saw it as an opportunity to try 4. Because why wouldn't you when your 3 ain't working 100%? They must have, because he said something about Hill there was an awareness in the afternoon that he potentially wasn't going to play. So you've reacted how? You
brought in Markov as a sub.
Yeah, and obviously, we thought last week that one of the talls would have made way for West, because having West there with those 3 around choked whatever ability he was going to have show on debut. He had that one moment, and I don't think he touched the ball for more than
barely touched it
4 times after that. It was unsighted.
I would have rather they played Markov as defensive forward, as someone who's got some zip and run. I thought that was lunacy, and if that is you're thinking, it's absolute arrogance to think you're going to pull that off. You're not making 3 of them work. Most clubs, if you look at, they're actually paring back their height. You know, you look at, let's go to Brisbane a few years ago. They were happy for McStay to go and then sort of play the Danaher-Hipwood duo. You know, like people talk about Carlton, that they're better off when there's only really one of Curnow or McKay in the forward 50, the other one can roam forward. So I thought it was just absolute, either it's arrogance or it was just something like complacency. We can get away with this against West Coast.
I don't mind the element, and this is just a grand assumption, that you try different things throughout the season and then come finals, you go back to the things that worked. And you'd look at some of these case samples. Now, you wouldn't go into the finals, you wouldn't think, with 3 tall forwards. Because we did so much better, and you saw it even in the grand final with Hill kicking 4. The smalls sometimes come onto their own. And we're seeing that with Elliott now. His output's diminished since McStay's come back
which I said a few weeks ago. So that's changed the synergy of that. And he barely touched it also, Elliott. So that's not working. To go taller just seems insane. Especially when your game plan is relying on frenetic pressure. So you're kicking the ball, what you're hoping is for some spillage and then a small swoop and either tackle or win the ball. And you said, we're going to move away from that. We're going to have 4 talls, none of whom are particularly quick or agile. You know, they're good for their size, but they're not exceptional or anything. And you pretty much got what you thought you'd get in that. It just seemed like an absolute insane gambit to play. And I could never ever see them going in the finals and going, let's play 4 tall forwards.
Oh, fuck no.
You know, and not because of the outcome yesterday. I just think it's like, let's say we kicked 20 goals yesterday and West kicked 4 and Mitra kicked 4 and McStay kicked 2 and whatever. I bet that would have been an outlier, and they never would have done it again. And they would have only done it because it was against the 18th place side.
That's it.
It's insanity to have tried that. And I really, if they're going to try things, I would have rather they did something, like I said, play Markov up forward, try that Hayes again, even go, you know what, let's play Quaynor up forward, or just anything to change it up. And it just really seemed madness.
Yeah, look, I guess logically that's the side that you test this stuff out against. But it almost epically came back and bit them on the arse. I mean, we ended up winning by 5 goals, so it's one of those things again, like, yeah, right, you've put on a putrid performance in the first half, you've lifted in the second, then you've let them back in again, and then you've eventually run away with it and you won by 5 goals. Any day of the week, a 5-goal win is generally something that you tend to celebrate. But I just don't think the method in which we achieved it this way was particularly good.
No, I mean,
for the season.
Not to impugn West, but I think they looked much more balanced when he got subbed out also. So,
well, you're returning back to norm and you've taken one of the tools out of the equation.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, conversely, when we flicked through the highlights before, you still had irritating moments, though, with West there when the ball was kicked to him in the first and Elliott went up with him.
Yeah.
And again, this is a case where Elliott should have stayed down. You know, West is in the square. He's a reputable good mark from VFL. Let him try and ply his trade that early in the game. Not get in the way and impede it. It just was a nonsensical type move. Sorry, you're about to say exactly what I'm saying.
There's a few times where they're all clustered together.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like they sort of set a plan and go, you lead that way, and just split it. So yeah. I was really frustrated. I'm more frustrated with the fact that even if it was the 18th place West Coast, that you're even experimenting with stuff that's never going to have any longevity or sustainability against better sides. So for you to have that mindset of, let's just screw around and try this, I thought that was absolutely absurd. Like I said, I would have rather they did something like, let's try and mark off as a defensive forward, whoever else is in the reserves, because I know we're getting a few injuries now, or let's play Mitchell for 20 minutes, hopefully, as a sub. Let's move Quaynor. Let's play Nick as a permanent forward for this game. There's a lot of things to try. Having said that, to come back from the forward line, I mean, I think the midfield is still a big issue too. You had Pendlebury, BOG for mine, but that midfield opposition seemed to waltz it out. in contests. Like I said this before, and it's, again, it's criticism. So, cover your ears if you don't like it. Darcy Cameron's exceptional around the ground, but he's a really average type ruckman. And McStay's not a great substitute, so you're losing when he's in there. And obviously you can play Cox, who will give you a better relief ruckman, but then you're losing stuff around the ground. So I think that's a balance also they need to find.
Yeah, there's too much of a need to win the ball at ground level with the hit-outs. You never see any of that beautiful free-flowing, like Nick just breaks free, runs, the ball's tapped to him and bang, he's off for a clearance. There's a lot of groundwork and it's a lot of ugly work to get the ball out. And a lot of the times West Coast shut that down. Yeah. Anytime, there was a lot of fumbling because we were either under some sort of perceived pressure or something from them that we just couldn't move that ball cleanly. The ball usage, as I said, first half was borderline deplorable. And that's not just the fact that they over-fucking handballed everywhere. Could anyone have a kick? You're sitting there watching it from the ground. It reminded me of watching junior footy. You had 36 blokes pretty much within... worst case, maybe 30, 40 metres of the ball. It would all just follow it around and become this big clunk. Even when the ball potentially could have come out, where was it going to go? It was just going to go to another contest because they'd moved and peeled into clumps, and that just kept tracking the ball around the ground until it spread out a little bit in the second half. But it was just a putrid spectacle.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, Sidebottom was, I think, AA form about 4.
Well, Alcoholics Anonymous. Was he drinking before the game?
Oh, he did it after the game, though.
I know he feels after watching that.
No, but you go back to that Fremantle game. Up until then, I think it was in the All-Australian squad. He's quieted down, but the thing is, up until then, they were really playing him as a centre bounce mid. And he hasn't really been in there since then. He keeps sort of get thrown out to the wing. I found it interesting the way they're setting up. Again, they might be experimenting and seeing what they've got for finals, but I thought the thing they really lacked was running around the stoppages. It was sort of all very congested. There was where you want your Lipinskis and Hoskin Elliott's and Nick Daicos to provide that run out. You weren't getting that, and that was a concern.
Do you think there's an element of, let's say you found that magic formula, and you knew absolutely, without shadow of a doubt, you could replicate it when required, wouldn't you not go through the season and not declare your hand too early? Wouldn't you just shuffle things around to make it look like, this is a well-drilled side? I've no doubt about that. That if push comes to shove and come finals, you can click that mode of this is what we want to be come finals on at that time. Why declare it now, that hand?
I don't know. I look at it also from the flip side of you can fuck around with it and then you lose the synergy, so you can't just regenerate it.
That's a fair point.
And then potentially, if you play that hand so well, maybe no one does stop it.
Certainly circumstances has changed things a little bit. Losing McCreary gives you that impact and drive out of the midfield when he did manage to play in there. There are things there that are going to work particularly well when they come back. Schultz pressure around the ball and all that sort of stuff. That's going to come back and be a given. But, you're right, the synergy, if it's not all there until that 11th hour, that could be a problem.
I know. The interesting thing, if they get players back, it's like, then who do you start dropping? So they've got about 7 players from that starting 18 who aren't in there. Now, obviously, you start with Sullivan, is the most inexperienced. Ed Allen potentially goes also. Huskin Elliott. Because you're talking about, so you got McCreary, Schultz, and Hill to come back. So that's the 3 forwards. Then you got Maynard to come back. Potentially you got the Goey also to come back. There's someone I'm missing in this list. Mitchell, potentially there's one more guy I'm missing. Frampton.
No, yeah.
So you got all these guys. So Dean would
make way.
Probably go for Frampton. That's the way you're most likely going to do that.
Hoskin Elliott would make way, I would think.
So, but then who do you... Markov would go out.
Yep. But West obviously goes out of...
Yeah.
You're going to get at least 4 or 5 that you can... But there's going to have to be some heartbreak, I think, and it has to be, I think, one of the Triple M's.
That's what I think, and particularly the guy we missed there was the Goey. I'm pretty
sure and he's not played since, the Geelong game, so someone's going to make way for that. And the thing is, ultimately, if you want to win the flag, you're going to have to make sacrifices like we did in 2010 with some of the old firm having to make way. Trouble is, at the moment, the old firm's outperforming a lot of the young firms.
But
So
the thing with De Goey too, I mean, I'm sort of going ahead, but if he only became available for finals, I don't even think they should risk it. I think they should just go, well,
I'd risk it.
if you get this guy, because the one thing with De Goey's injury is they obviously don't know how it's pulling up, and they're always speculating. Well, I think it's about 3 weeks, so they don't actually know. So it's a situation where they could say, look, go out, run around, and potentially 15 minutes later, he just runs off and goes, no, it's gone again. I can't do anything. Unless they can get some serious football into him leading into the finals, it's really a massive gamble.
Well, that'll have to happen. He'll need a 6-week block just to get back into...
So I'm saying, though, if he only became available around the finals, then do you take that?
Oh, I think I'd still...
The thing, too, is you bring De Goey in. So you can't play De Goey, Membry, Myercheck, and McStay. McStay would have to play because they're using him as a relief ruck, and they have to play Myercheck. So it's Membry who's going to suffer.
Back way, yeah.
And then there's also the thing about morale and all that. Like you look at Noble as an example. He was ousted for the finals, and it obviously disenfranchised him to the point that he wanted to leave, and that's not unusual. Derek Kickett, Essendon '93. It happens with players. It's like, I've been playing the whole season and now I'm out for someone else. So you don't know how much that also affects the team morale, team harmony. It's like, well, what's that? Membry's been there for 21 games and now he's out for a guy who hasn't played. So anyway, I mean, we're going really far, I feel. But these are the sort of team balances. You look at defence. What do you think of Dean's game? I mean, they're very complimentary in the messages.
He looked miles off of it.
Did you think about his mother before he made that criticism?
Well, she was sitting next to me and she said he looked miles off it as well. Yeah. No, I think it was just... Yeah, look, it's his first game in and all that sort of thing. And the reality is he's probably not going to get dropped for a few weeks because who the fuck else is coming in?
If they bring Maynard back, they might.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah. But he, just the way he was, from the ground, the view, he was looking loose. He had no great idea.
Oh, he was massively out of the tempo.
Yeah, it was just the pace... Whatever it was just off. He was just not following his opponent correctly. There was a period there where I saw him and he tried to run to Quaynor's opponent. Quaynor said, "No, mate, fuck off. That's your bloke over there." And then they remonstrated, and Quaynor sort of started to head towards the guy that was loose to the right, and then they had another discussion. Then Dean went off after it. I think we're not obviously privy to that conversation, but you don't often see that in defence, such a prolonged discussion and pointing about, well, you should be going here, you should be going here, which again stems back to, I guess, the experience that he has and everything. But he just looked like a liability.
We know, the club a couple of years ago rated him extremely highly, and then you go to the start of last year where he started in round 0 against GWS rather than Frampton, so they obviously still rode that, but he's fallen behind in estimations. I think the reality is they probably do have to play him for at least another 2 weeks because potentially you might lose a tall and going to have someone who's at least keyed in a little bit. He is a concern though. The thing people need to remember is, from 2022, he had that great pre-season game. I think it was against Hawthorn. And then he was injured and effectively missed the next 2 years. So he's missed a lot of football, and maybe, that injury has impacted the player he might have been, and he'll never be that. But having not played for 2 years, it can't be easy just jumping into it and trying to play. And West Coast played really, really well. Yeah,
that was surprising. Although McRae said in the presser, it's been building. They saw it coming.
Darcy Moore.
They saw it coming and decided to play tall forwards.
Darcy Moore.
Yeah,
he hasn't really been the same since he came back from the vertigo.
Do you think he's still up there?
Could be dizzy.
Yeah, he had a lot of dumb moments. He got better. Last week, he got better as the game went on. He took a couple of good saving marks there. I don't think that was, from my perspective, someone that really bugged me too much.
No, I didn't bug you.
Howe played such a good game.
Howe was brilliant. Howe was a throwback to a few years ago.
I think when you're drawn to someone who is dominating in defence, then you're a little bit more forgiving of what's around you, unless you're Dean.
Well, Houston, do we have a problem?
He kicks goals.
Kicks one.
Yeah. So he had 19 possessions. I was saying to you before, even with Crisp, what did Crisp end up with the numbers? It was 25 or something.
Just keep talking while I look it up.
And I just can't remember him getting near it all that often. The same with Houston. 19 possessions, and I don't think many...
Chris about 27.
27. What was... Did you got the contested and uncontested numbers there?
No, I'm not that bright.
What about with Houston?
Houston, as soon as I find his name... Is his name Lachlan Sullivan? He had 18 possessions. 0 tackles, which I think is a big one.
Oh, you're a defender, aren't? Isn't that your bread and butter?
The one... I saw Nathan Buckley talking about... This is about 6 weeks ago. One of those football shows they were talking about Carlton. And they're talking about like how they had to move past some of these older players they got. And they brought up Doherty. And someone said, oh, but he's got like 27 possessions. And Buckley said, if you're an experienced player, getting 27 possessions is not a problem. You'll do it easy. It's how effective they are. And I think that's one thing too. Is people can throw numbers at you, but I don't think they're always significant because there's a lot of 1-2s, there's a lot of sideways kicks across ground.
Oh, and that's it. I mean, how many times a game do they switch play? And they're just cheap possessions you're getting. Numbers can be, obviously, as we well know, misleading.
Yeah, but I mean, there's times like they switch play and then they switch back the other way.
Yeah.
So you've got them like 2 kicks doing nothing.
Or they'll take 10 possessions to send the ball back where it started from.
Do
I?
Do you think... Because I've heard this from a few people. I'm not saying it's us. There's a few people saying there's danger signs in the last few weeks. The way we've struggled against lesser teams. The system hasn't really functioned as well in the middle and going forward. Which, thanks. But I shouldn't say any player's name. But do you see those as foreshadowing of something potentially about to unravel, or maybe it'll ultimately unravel, or do you just think it's still just past the middle of the year and we're still just finding what our best team is?
So we've got about 8 rounds left, don't we?
Yeah.
So you traditionally coming into that period where loads change and you're going to expect some stinker performances. At the moment, I still think we have that mindset of we are doing everything to just win games and qualify for that top 2 position. Whether we win ugly or not isn't really super relative. I don't think they go back and dwell a hell of a lot on performances like that. We probably do more than anyone. But they'll probably be, yep, it's done. There's some lessons here to be learned when we rewatch the tape on Monday. But they'll move. I reckon they'll move past.
No one uses tape anymore.
You move past games like this pretty quick. I think you
move past them quicker than you moved in them.
I think you pretty much worked out at quarter time and half time and the 3/4 time addresses that things were pretty average. Yeah, you're just going to go back and paint the same sort of picture.
Well,
I think that you still continue to qualify. You get to a position where over the next 8 weeks, we've got some injuries. We've got some players that we know are going to come back in time. We've still got capacity to rotate players out. I think, even though we've got probably about 5 or 6, 7, probably first 18 out.
Yeah.
You've got to look at that and think, well, some of these performances are probably indicative of that. We're still winning by bloody 5, 6 goals. We're 10 points clear on the ladder in first place. There's a whole lot of positives there that you can point towards. And I think the majority of the supporter base will be very comfortable looking at those numbers and saying...
There's a shock of originality.
then that's enough. But there's a longer game here that you've got to play.
Yeah.
It's not just week-to-week proposition type stuff that we're first on the ladder and therefore the world's all sunshine and lollipops. We've got to get through this 8 weeks, and we've got to get through this 8 weeks that we're in a position that we can put that best 18 plus 4 onto the ground in prep for the finals and give it the red-hot fucking crack it deserves.
I mean, as Gary said, you look at the second half, we kicked 8-5 to their 2-3. Did I get that right? 2-4, sorry. So they didn't kick a goal in the last quarter. They had some shots. They had some looks at it. So in the end, we did finish relatively strongly. How do you think we carry that on against Carlton? Playing Friday night, the traditional rival.
See, you're in a position now, I reckon, where Carlton was shit house last week. they're not going to be that bad again, I think, especially because they're playing us. They'll want to lift. They'll want to atone for their sins. Now, this week will probably be very telling as, look, if they come out and they're just as cripplingly bad as they were and we dominate and we win comfortably, it's happy fucking days for the whole of Collingwood's fraternity, and it pretty much spells the end of whatever it is they are at Carlton.
They come in.
with the skeleton meme. If they come out and they put in a spirited performance and lose, it sort of works for them. It makes us happy. If they come out and actually win, and you would have to look at the way we played on the weekend, and you would probably now go, even though we're shit, we're a chance against these guys. You know, there is absolutely no doubt that we are going to have an absolute stinker at one point. I think we almost tried to have it on the weekend, and it was the opposition. But the thing is, these are opportunities to look at your performance at this point and say, well, even against crap, we struggled. Why is that? You know, do we need to take this a little bit more seriously? There's a lot more options to reflect on that when you win ugly, and I hope that they take that into this week and you spank the pants off of them.
I think statistically, one of those football shows show that we actually score more freely against the better teams than against the shit teams because they obviously shut down. I actually disagree with you. I think Carlton's done. I think they're where Collingwood was in 2017, where they just painted themselves into a corner. Maybe they liked fast, but now they've tightened up so much they can't actually produce what they want to produce. They're still like the hardest ball winning side, but then the fluency that they exhibit,
their execution's terrible.
Yeah, so I actually think, and they had a shit game last week. They had another shit game just the week before, and the week before. I mean, they got smashed. So they lost. Who they lose to this week? It was Port Adelaide.
Yeah, they well and truly canned them.
They
lost to North the week before.
Yeah, North was only a 10-point loss. They got smashed by North for most of it, and then I can't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks ago. They got smashed by Adelaide. They're really, really bad, and they're really struggling.
They don't look right, as in mentally, that there's something happening behind the scenes.
Well, some of their fans, I mean, I actually found this funny, because someone shared a message where they said, their fans are confident against us because they're saying they're seeing cracks in Collingwood.
Their club's shattered.
You got fucking the Grand Canyon at Carlton, but you're seeing cracks at Collingwood. Some of their fans are like,
that train wreck's worse than ours.
I think Turts shared it, like some of the footage from one of the popular podcasts they do, but just saying that, like, the supporter will say something like, you can see in the players' faces, this is them sending a message to the admin, we're done with this guy, as advice. And obviously they're going to come out and say all the right things, but I just think they're shot. It's not just last week was a bad game. They've had a really bad 6 weeks, and that West Coast North double was the one that should have sort of started to catapult them back out of it, and it didn't. North smashed them, so I think they're fucked, and I think we'll smash them. I'm curious what the returns, the injuries, and all that will be, and how we definitely won't line up with 4 talls, you wouldn't think.
Well, McCreary's not coming back yet, and Schultz is probably at least another week or 2 away. Maynard has to be in. I reckon Teach will come in.
And Hill's got to come back.
Well, Hill comes back, yeah. So, I mean, really, they're quite strong ins.
Yeah.
So, it really is stacked in our favour. It's our game to lose.
Well, it's the whole, the one thing you got to say that we do well is we do know the system well for the most part, so I know against some lesser opposition in Fremantle and North, where we had really depleted sides, with our system still won us the game. Then you get some players back and you play Carlton, I think we'll smash them. What's your tip?
Collingwood 140 points.
Sounds good to me. I'll say 36 points.
Yeah, because you look at, there's no McKay coming back. You've got Curnow, who's just all over the place at the moment. Who's the other forward? McGovern or something?
He was thrown forward. He's been playing it back line.
He was shocking. Wiedering looks like he should be injured.
Wiedering, obviously that ankle injury is a lot worse than they let on. And Sard's concussed.
So he should be out again.
No, he will miss because he's got to go into protocols, which is...
that's right, because that happened this game, wasn't it? Yeah. So, and he's running... It has troubled us, so that is a win for us.
Yeah. In terms of, what's your serious tip?
Oh, I'd say 30 points.
I'd say 140. Comments. Costa Vassilos. Hi, dudes. Thanks again.
Costa Vassilos?
Yeah.
Is it about $8.50?
Oh, it's really bad. Hi, dudes. Thanks again. Love the rant. Timothy O'Kane.
Who's he?
I don't know.
Is he a newbie?
Timothy O'Kane.
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of magnesium.
Wasn't he the guy that was on Alien?
Top show, folks. Ashton Prison. This is about to kill the game.
So was that Timothy O'Kane's contribution? Top show, folks.
He ripped into me for another one, but it's like, no. You're ripping to the guy and Gavin in the comments. Ashton Prison, we passed the Roster Boss coaching masterclass test. It was good to see James Hurd and Grant Thomas make Ross's comments on the free kicks look silly. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did see something about that.
Yeah, I mean, James Hurd...
Because they picked it apart and said, oh, it's free every day of the week.
Yeah, all four of them.
Did Ross the Boss, did he have a sook in at AFL House this week?
I don't know. People, sort of arced up. They're going, oh, look at the way he spoke at the press conference. He's a fucking coach backing his team. And why do you think he's going to... Yeah, we shouldn't have done that against Nick. Badass. Fucking hell, seriously. Things people look for. I feel we'll need to go up a few years when finals arrive. Hope this mounting injuries doesn't derail the back end of the season, which I totally agree. Stephen Maguire, in previous years, we lose those games. Saint Speed worried us. Can Houston play in the midfield? Can he?
Can he play anywhere?
Well, that's a better question. I wouldn't be averse to trying that.
Why the fuck not?
Mick the Music Dude.
Mick
Charlie
the Music
West,
Dude.
7-goal debut coming up. Not quite.
He got one right.
Hills, 710. Don't mind teams tagging Nick. All it has done has given Chris the freedom to show just how good he is this year. Throw in the 2 to 3 free kicks we get off the tag. Seems to be working well for us. Yeah, I don't mind that.
Gee, fucking, did you see the media narrative though? That when Nick was being tagged and his output was down, it's a blueprint for every other team to work out how to stop Nick. Then Nick's not tagged this week, and he has a shocking first half. And the commentary is, well, this is the blueprint. Do you necessarily need to tag Nick? Is he going to do his own damage? Seems to be the thing. But the thing is, even when he's down on output, the last couple of weeks, he's probably got 3 vote games at any rate, with the way that the umpiring love the midfielders. So
yeah,
come we're not mid, we're past the mid part of the Brownlow counting, and he's miles in front, and he'll be looking stupid. Probably me.
Yeah.
Again.
That'd be unusual. Digsby 7134. WHE needs to start kicking some goals or impacting the game in some form, or else he's going to the VFL for at least a month. Not good enough at the moment to make the best 23.
Is WHE, is that a pronoun?
Yeah. So I think...
Is that Wheeze and Wem?
John Raptus. John the Raptus. That KO menu is an effing disgrace. Probably the worst user interface I've ever seen. Not getting disagreements here.
Do you know the amazing thing with KO is when you leave it on the Apple device and you come back later, it's still showing stuff from fucking 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And then you got to sit there and you go, you know what would be really handy right now? Would be a fucking refresh button. Or something simple like clicking home would take you right back to a reset of the menu. You have to literally sit there for up to a minute to wait for it to realise that 2 weeks has passed. And then it shows you stuff that's relevant.
Well, that's what John said. I pressed 15 menu items to get to the game, just the fast. As you were, boys, love the show. I'll tell you the thing I fucking hate about KO.
All of it?
Yeah. But the thing I really hate, when I first signed up, it's now choose the sports you love, okay? I think that'll tailor the menu to these sports. No, I get every single sport in the world.
Doesn't make a fucking shred of difference.
Why did you make me spend 10 minutes choosing? And I was sitting there going... Yeah, do I want that? Yeah, let's try that for a little bit. I seriously consider that, I wouldn't mind seeing some Test cricket from South Africa or whatever. What the fuck's that? He's showing you everything.
Well, it's like in the off-season, if you go click on your name and it shows you that list of all the icons of the sport that you picked. During the off-season, I thought, I might watch the grand final replay. So I thought, well, the old logical way of finding this would be to go and click on the Collingwood symbol here and get, in a drawn order down. No, Peruvian badminton is more popular than anything under the Collingwood menu for there. And it took me fucking ages. They're rummaging around. The search function's absolutely pointless.
Oh, that's hopeless.
It is just one giant fucking clusterfuck. So well done, KO.
Here's a tip.
But you just keep taking our money.
Here's a tip. On that, here's a tip to the listeners. Jump into your KO account, start to cancel it, and then they give you a discount to stay a subscriber.
Do they? Have you proven this theory?
Yeah.
I take the digital membership because it's the cheapest way to get it. And Collingwood sends you a scarf, so if things are going bad, you can hang yourself.
Is it acrylic or wool?
No, it looked like it was made out of old nylon.
Mary Tancredi, you're being harsh on many of our boys. I don't think we can or should expect every player to start every week, which we've never said they should, but we've often said we don't expect them to start every week. When one is down, another steps up. We're finding different ways to win, and Oppo teams don't know how to stop us. May that continue. Go Pies.
Love the sentiment, but you're just wrong. The thing is, with any form of sport, is there has to be criticism of performances. Otherwise, where's the impetus to improve? And you think that if we go hard, can you imagine what the internal discussions are like at the club? Do you think it's all sunshine and lollipops? I think the supporter base, and it probably represents at least 75%, and it's not just Collingwood, which is probably 95%, but in most sports, everyone has a rose-coloured view of the sport. You have your fanaticism around the love of them, you have your fanaticism and love of the players, and you tend to turn a blind eye to any poor performances. You'll go into your shell and then someone will pop up 6 weeks' time that copped a bag and they'll have one good outing and then suddenly, well, this is why we kept them. Not those previous 5 weeks of garbage, but this one moment says this is why we keep it. And you see that a lot as a repetitive theme inside of comments that you read on Twitter and X or whatever it's called this week, is that there's some of us that actually like to be reasonably impartial, but also critical of what we want to express as frustration. And that's nothing to do with that we hate these individuals or anything to say that. It's just that you know that they're capable
we want them to do
of so much better. We want everyone to, and we don't realistically expect week in, week out that everyone's going to stand up or people are going to pop up out of nowhere and fulfill a role and cater for that, put their arms around and say, you had a shit game today, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful next week. Here's a hug.
Yeah, a lot of people have been hanging their hat on and that Pat Lipinski stat that he has 50% of every time he goes inside 50, he finds a teammate. It was 10% ahead of the next closest player. And people have been really fucking banging his stat around and saying, well, this is why he's so valuable. And this is not the bag Lipinski, it's the way you interpret stats. So I actually did a little bit of digging. So in terms of scoring involvements, he's currently sitting 58th in the competition. Behind, for Collingwood, Nick Daicos at 2, Jamie Elliott at 9, Ned Long at 39, Scott Pendlebury at 44, Josh Daicos at 53, and Pat Lipinski's at 58. Okay, so I would have thought someone kicking inside 50 would probably have more score involvements. So I thought I'd look at goal assists. He's sitting at 202 in the league for goal assists. Behind Long at 11, 14, Nick Daicos, 31, Bobby Hill, 36, Jamie Elliott, 48, Jordan DeGoey. So, I mean, that's obviously some single stat he must have actually, hit someone. 56, Scott Pendlebury, 68, Jack Cruz, 74, McCreary and Schultz, 157, Will Hayes. Now, some of these names I've read out like Hayes and DeGoey have barely played, so it shows you how farcical these stats are because they cherry pick things. I said about Lipinski being that, and it's not the bag of Lipinski, it's to understand the stats. If he kicks it inside 54 times and hits someone in the chest twice, he's at 50%. If Nick kicks it inside 50 10 times, but only hits 4 people, he's at 40%. So how do these stats work? Is it a measure of their effective kicks? I don't quite know. I mean, you pointed out yesterday where he turned around, shanked it, and it went straight to Josh Daicos.
Who protected himself, accidentally marked it. And that would have been registered as a positive in that stat metric. Whereas it's like it didn't guide that kick there. It wasn't meant to go there. It just accidentally landed there. So conversely, if that's the case, if you took that as a negative, and he did those shanks and it went to the opposition, we might as well count those stats as well.
Well, looking at, and I actually looked at all the players that we have highlighted, and I was going to bring them up for. No, I don't want to be criticised of condemning these players because it's not. It's to actually look at output. So looking at Pat Lipinski, this year, this is how he's rated as a player: disposals average, kicks average, handballs average, marks above average, tackles below average, clearances below average, fantasy points average. People throw stats around and go, well, fuck, well, you know what? This is why he's great. Well, okay, we'll throw some stats back and it's like, well, that output isn't great. He has some great moments. That's not to criticise him. We've said it with all these players. We don't expect them to fucking dominate every week, but you need some return more consistently than you don't get it. These people, and, not just pointing at this person who's comment, because I get this from some people, it's like to win a flag, You need to be the best of the best in the competition. To be the best of the best, you need to be elite. Do you think you're going to be elite with players getting returns of average stats in those categories? No. You want fucking better returns. Now, I'm not expecting everyone to be Nick Daicos because there's players who are role players and all that sort of stuff. But there's players in our side right now, and I looked up the ones we have sort of highlighted. They've just got ranges of average and below average returns. Is that good enough for you?
No, and the thing is, like, just going back on what you said about the grand finals, there's that saying about it's not your top 6 that win you a flag, it's your bottom 6, because they're the ones on the day that chose to be fucking great, and they lifted. You look in the 23 grand final. I mean, can you think of any passengers that we had in that game?
Chuck in.
Well, aside from him, and he's not there anymore. But everybody lifted for the occasion. You don't want to rely on these ones that may be average to perform average on the day. You want them to push themselves to be better. And that's where the critique comes in.
Yeah, I just get really, really fucking tired of people going, you criticise players, or when these guys have a good game, then going, oh, well, how do you like that, Sly? And it's like, I love it. More of it, please. But I won't hear that for another 8 weeks. I don't know if I should go this far, but I will. These attitudes that you get thrown back at us, this is why this club has been mired in mediocrity since 1936, because you celebrate existing for the sake of existing rather than celebrating excellence and its achievement. This is why, we fucking lose games, we lose grand finals, and people go, we've got the biggest membership, we've got biggest profits, or who gives a fuck? You tell me right now, in 2010, who had the biggest membership? What was it? Who had the biggest profits? What were they? Who won the flags? Tell me how many fucking of those you can name. You'll name one, the Premier. That is it. That's all this game is about.
Well, I mentioned it before, but it reminds you of that campaign that Visa ran years ago, where they showed some fucking guy running across the line when someone else had already won. And the catch was no one remembers who came second.
Yeah.
And that pretty much, that's just unfortunately the way sport works.
Yep.
We celebrate.
It's not unfortunately.
No, it's just that it is. It's a competitive beast, and it's a very results-driven industry. And you pore over these results week in, week out. You sit there watching games. You're willing certain people to lift, to do better, that they're having a shocker or a stinker or whatever it is, and it's not helping things. And that's the stuff that you get frustrated about. And when it's a repeat offender, you really got to question sometimes what's going on. Why are they holding their spots? There's got to be other options there that could come in and equally do just as poorly, who have potentially more upside.
Yeah.
And they're the sort of dilemmas that you go through your head. And like on those numbers and the statistics and all that sort of stuff, straight away when that Lipinski one came out, I messaged you saying the first thing that came into my head was that Mark Twain quote about lies. There are 3 types of lies: lies, damn lies, and statistics. You can make numbers appear good, you can make numbers appear bad. For every positive, you can go, like I said before, about for all the turnovers and stuff in the forward line, that negates that stat. But you can propagate anything and make it something to hang your hat on. And you seen like there's the behaviours that the club does, and fair enough, they need to do this sort of thing. But you know that there's a runway. They can't be just listening to you and I, because we seem to be the one that are upset the most, apparently. That when Schultz was struggling,
there's a lot
the media department started pumping up the most inane things in the social feeds. And now Lipinski is getting that. And you think, well, instead of... Look, you can understand it's their job to make it all to look glossy on the outside. But you just don't think that they go internally and say, we've got you, mate, we've got your arms around you, all that sort of thing, let's just fucking move on. You'd still be working with them and you'd be trying to get them to grow and develop and improve in the areas that they're lacking. No sporting institution is going to just accept mediocrity as good enough, unless you're Carlton.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. There was footage a couple of weeks ago of a team meeting, and they were commending Reece McInnes because he had the new bench press record at the club. You look at stuff like that, and it's like, internally, the club is saying we need to aspire to be better, to do what we've done and take it to the next level. We need to constantly push the bar from here to the next place. So if you think, as Spook said, like if you think that hey, we're being critical. You don't think this is being driven inside the club. You don't think they're not going, how do we get better? How do you get better? How do you offer more? Externally, they do all the right things supporting the players. I have no problem with that. I think the Schultz thing, was a little bit stupid, simply because I think that was actually putting more pressure on Schultz to perform. Not in terms of him, but like because there were fans going, why are they doing this? Now we're expecting more of this guy because you're pumping him up. And you should just let him play football. But I actually find it fucking insane when people champion average returns and then they're annoyed when people like ourselves highlight it. And it's like, oh, we need too hard. No, not too hard. You want to get fucking better, you push that bar. You don't stay where you are. If you stay where you are left behind. And if that's good enough for you, then like I said, that's the reason this club's been in the fucking shit since 1937 and did virtually nothing. I actually remember, just sort of like just a thing about perspective. I remember having an argument with someone on one of the message boards saying, we haven't done, this is years ago, saying we haven't done that well. And then he goes, would you rather be Footscray or St Kilda? And it's like, so to make yourself feel better, you're comparing down. You're not pointing up and going, we've got to get as good as Hawthorn in the modern era.
Yep.
We're better than... So why push yourself to be anything if you're always going to be better than something that's terrible?
Yep. And it's the same thing. Like, we're sitting number one. We're 2.5 games clear. Who's going to fucking rest on their laurels on that at the club?
Yeah.
They're going to push everyone to get another extra percentage, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever, out of themselves each week to be better. Anyway.
Well, I mean, McRae says it, he says it obliquely because he says we're a work in progress. So regardless, he's always saying we're a work in progress, this is not the finished product. So he's actually saying we need to get better than whatever we are. So, these people who just want to celebrate Collingwood for being Collingwood, great, I applaud you for your love of the club. But you know what? Nothing stands still, except Disney. They're fucked. Any final thoughts?
The Acolyte's shit. I thought you were going to pay me for doing this.
Yeah. It's raining here.
And it's pouring.
The old man is...
No, I'm not snoring yet.
Oh. Alright, no final thoughts?
No.
Alright.
Just go out and smash Carlton.
Leave comments. I'm not going to read any mean ones anymore. Subscribe, share, watch, share some more.
Get angry.
Feel the rage.
Feel the heat.
Hulk. Yep, and that's it for us.
Look at me. Who am I?
I don't know.
Who missed a lot on the weekend? Anyone?
Spakinski.
Look at me. I'm Spakinski.
You hit the phone at least.
We won the flag. We're going to win the flag.
I'll take that. Would you take that?
I'm taking it.
Take it.
And the beer's empty.